Hey guys, welcome back to my Practically Imperfect Life. I'm really excited for today's video because it fit in really nicely with something that I really needed to get done, and that is planning and prepping for the next couple of weeks of our homeschool. This video is a part of the Homeschool Show and Tell series. It's hosted by Abby from Rooted in Rest and Jessica from the Waldeck Way. Each month they choose a topic related to homeschooling, and then people all over the country with all different types of homeschools submit videos to that playlist showing you how it is we approach that topic. And so the topic for January was a planning day, or like homeschool mom planning. Now, if you watched my January goals video, I talked about how I really felt like I needed to sit down and do a significant chunk of planning and prepping. I like to sit down and try to at least get prepared for the next 6 to 8 weeks at a time. I did a really good job of doing that at the beginning of the school year in October, and then December just got crazy. And I did not do that for starting back up after Christmas break. And so I wanted to show you specifically what it is I mean by planning and prepping when it comes to high school level, because I have two high schoolers. I've got an 11th grader and I've got a 10th grader. And so I'm going to show you a little bit of my lesson plans, what it is I'm going to be looking for and trying to figure out for them. This is not about deciding exactly what we're going to do on every single day, because like every homeschool, we've got to be able to be flexible. We've got to ebb and flow a little bit. If something is taking one of my kids a little bit longer, I want to give them that time. If something happens, like somebody gets sick, we want to plan for that too. But at the same time, I want to make sure that I have an awareness of what it is that's coming up in our lesson plans. What is it they're going to be covering and doing? What is it I need to be prepared to help them with? And if there's stuff that we need as far as books pulled out, things copied, supplies on hand, I want to make sure I have all of that ready. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you our lesson plans, what we've kind of got coming up for the next couple of weeks, and what I do for those, and also kind of focus in on some of those subjects that are a little bit different than some traditional curriculums, because I have a few that are curriculums that pull in like a lot of different things, and those ones typically are the ones that take me just a little extra time to get prepared for. So let's get the next 6 weeks of our homeschool year ready to rock.
Block of planning is I go to my lesson planner. Now, this is an Excel document. It was a free template that I downloaded years ago, and basically I start in the summer and I go through and I just put in all of the different assignments for a given curriculum. I have two kids that kind of follow one grade behind the other. So a lot of times if I'm doing this from year to year, I'll take things that I've done for one kid and I will copy and paste it in the next one. So for example, this is the physics list of assignments for my oldest. When my son does physics next year, I'll copy and paste this over into his sheet on the planner here. So you see I've got both my kids down there and I've got my group subjects as well. So this is something that took me a decent amount of time in the summer, but it is extremely helpful because when I enter these in, I just go down until those lessons stop. So for example, I'm just going to show you on this first column where calculus or pre-calculus is, you're going to see that the last assignment, if we were to do this every single day of our school year, only goes to 138 days. Well, we do 180 days at our homeschool. So that tells me that I can spread things out. We can take some breaks from it. We can do some days where it's 4 days a week. We can easily add in other breaks. Whereas other subjects like physics, which is the next one over, the way that the assignments are planned out, it goes literally the whole 180 days. So there's a little less wiggle room with physics than there is with pre-calculus. So I put all of those in there. Now let me scroll back up here to where I'm at. What I do is when my kids have completed an assignment, like we know it's done, is I highlight it in yellow. And that way I know where we're picking up next. And so we're kind of in different spots with different curriculum. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look ahead at the next 6 weeks or so of assignments. And I'm going to make note of things that I need to kind of get around and get ready. When it's science courses, a lot of times I'm looking for when are labs coming up, which labs are coming up, and also just making a quick note of which chapter they're on. So I can just do a quick flip through and just see what it is that they're going to be working on. When it comes to things like the Shorman math that they do, especially when I know a test is coming soon, then I will definitely want to give them some extra time so they have a few more days of study before taking those. For her literature, she is doing excellence in literature, which involves a lot of heavy reading and a lot of paper writing. So before Christmas, she wrote the rough draft of a paper to finish a module, and then she's got to finish editing that this week. Now, I know that she's had some really hefty books. And I can look ahead here and I can see like in module 5 here, she's going to be reading Paradise Lost. That's not a book that you just get through real quickly. So I'm looking ahead at things like that and thinking, well, is that something that we could go ahead and have her start getting some reading done on while she's just finishing up the editing of her last module's paper? And we'll probably do something like that. So I'm making a note of things along those lines. This last column here is her philosophy course. And this is one where it's not just reading and answering questions, and then occasionally, earlier on I had picked out when she's going to do like a bonus assignment from there, like an enrichment one. And so that'll tell me like, hey, let's go look at that enrichment assignment, see if there's anything I need to have ready for that. Same thing if I see a test coming up, so I know I can pull that test out and just make sure I have it printed out and ready to go. So I will do this for both of my kids, and I will just, on a sticky note, I'm going to make a note of chapters, labs, things like that, so I can start checking for our supplies and making sure I have things ready. Now, the subjects that aren't on this document are ones from Guest Hollow. Now, these are courses that look a little bit different, and I will pull up the planners for those and show you why I don't have them on here. Pages for the Guest Hollow curriculum are a little bit different. This is why I don't copy this over into my other planner, because it would just be so much to type in for any given day. So I actually have these schedules printed out and I spiral bound them so that way I can actually make notes on them, which is what I'm going to do. But I wanted to show you kind of what it is I'm looking at. So for example, week 18 is going to be the first week that my daughter is doing in government after we come back from Christmas break. So it has like the days that she's supposed to do different readings in the online textbook and some of the different chapter books that she's reading, as well as giving me links to things like these activities. So this is something that I definitely look at while I'm doing prep. I determine like which of the books we're going to read, if all of them, part of them, and I'll look at the recommended activities and printables on the given weeks and open them up, see how long they are, see how I think they fit in if we want to do them. Some weeks there's quite a few to choose from. Some there's fewer. Like you can see here, this is week 19. There's a couple of different things that she can do. And so that is going to be part of my prep work, but I'll make all my notes for this on the physical copy that I've printed out before I determine exactly what it is we're going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my notepad so I can start going back and looking at our lesson planner, and I will grab my copies of my different Guest Hollow books. I have one for world history for my son, one for government for my daughter, and then the chemistry in the kitchen that they both do. Start making some notes and then get some things pulled. So one of the things that I'm taking time to write down are any books that are assigned to the kids, whether that's something they're going to read for literature or for one of their Guest Hollow programs. And then I'll go over to our bookcase where I've got them all organized, and I'll pull off the ones that we are going to be using. So a couple of the ones that I've got pulled here, see, Emma's getting ready to read Paradise Lost, and then she'll go into Pride and Prejudice with an honors book for that module, which is Sense and Sensibility. She's going to read Fahrenheit 451, parts of the U.S. Senate, They Called Us Enemy, and Inflation. Then going into sciences, so I do look over the labs. I try to get an idea for what is needed for them and kind of what's involved. So for example, there's like a special spring that's needed for this particular lab, and then there are some that will involve some things that would just seem kind of like odd to have to gather all together. Like she had a lab that asked for a certain diameter of copper pipe cut into certain lengths. And that might be something where it's like, well, that's kind of random to have to go and pick that up. But I do have the science kits that I ordered. And so for the most part, these things will be in our science kits. So I'll take a look and I'll see if everything that I need is in stock in those. So our kits this year we got from Home Science Tools, and I do like that they will list out the modules and what each thing is meant to be used for, like which chapters of the book they're meant to go with. So looking for what I needed for those chapter 10 and 11 labs, there's that weird little spring and copper pipes already cut into the sizes we need. That makes life a little bit easier. They also have sand. I believe a couple of the labs recommended either sand or kitty litter in order to create some kind of a weight system. So thankfully we have all of those things that we need. I really do like these Home Science Tools kits. I've used Nature Workshop as well, and really both companies do a great job as far as getting these prepared, and having a lot of like those weird supplies, so I don't have to make runs out to the store and try to find really obscure items. Then I'm going to do a little bit of printing. So something I didn't mention on these guest house schedules, links to things are live links. So one of the activities I wanted to look at, I just clicked right there in the schedule and it took me right to the link, and then I can download the resources. A lot of the activities for government come from a website called iCivics. You can sign up for iCivics for free, and there are just so many really cool mini and full-length lessons. So this is just one of them. I print them off, and then usually there's a couple pages with like some reading, but then there's some worksheet type activities included. I've just really enjoyed kind of incorporating those into what my daughter is doing with her government and econ course. And then some of them are not so much worksheets, but more like infographics. There's some really cool things you can print out, and I've seen that both in this course and quite a few like that in the chemistry in the kitchen course. So sometimes these cool graphics are just fun to print out. Sometimes I'll hang them up on the wall, sometimes I'll just put them in her desk drawer and tell her to look it over, but I think it's just a neat way to get a whole bunch of information without having to do a whole bunch of super heavy reading. So prepping for our group studies is the last thing. I know we're going to be starting a new Bible study. We're going to do Mercy in the Storm, study on the book of Jonah, since we finished up our Advent study. And then we finally finished our Old Testament study. So now we are on For God So Loved, the study of the Gospel of John. I have mentioned before that I haven't really felt like the teacher guide was totally necessary. I mean, this is really meant to be done in a classroom. That's kind of how they're set up. So a lot of the teacher guide stuff is assuming that you're doing it in a classroom setting with a bunch of different kids. So what we have mostly done is just use the student books. And so each day there's usually a reading assignment, and then we just kind of go through the different parts of it together. For example, here, like session 2, there'll be a reading, we'll discuss it, we'll look up the verses that are referenced, and then we'll answer these questions out loud. So, I mean, I flip ahead, I make sure that I've read the portions of the Bible that are going to be referenced in that reading, but other than that, we kind of just go through it together. German definitely takes a little while because, as I've mentioned, our curriculum from CLET is all in German. So I have to go through and just make sure that I have got a good understanding of everything. I mean, while I can read and speak German, I am not completely fluent, but I can kind of reteach myself rather quickly. So I go through and I make sure like I'll understand like what the different activities are, what it is it's asking, that I've got a good grasp of things like the grammar concepts that are being taught, because sometimes I gotta do a little bit of review to make sure that I'm ready to teach that. And then it does come with like a teacher guide, and then this intensive book has like practice worksheets and things like that in it that I can copy for us to use. And then lastly, we are working on the Titanic. So this is something that we're working through slowly. We're not in any rush, but you know, each day that we do it, which is just like one day a week, we do a lesson. And so I just take a quick look. We don't do like the hands-on activities or, you know, like the extras. We're pretty much just kind of reading it and discussing it just for a little extra background. So sometimes they get quite wordy, I'll be honest. Like there's a lot of reading to read out loud. So sometimes I pick and choose what it is I'm going to do. So yeah, a whole bunch of reading, but I'm also doing a read out loud. And we, again, are working through this book rather slowly. This is a great book, but it's written from the perspective of a soldier. So if you read this with your kids, I'd advise older teens. Be warned, there's like language in some spots and references to just some different things that soldiers might have done to relieve some tension before going into battle. Let me just put it that way. I mean, it's not graphic in that regard, but I mean, it's a story of war, and it's just kind of part of the history. But so far, very good book. I'm looking forward to us continuing to read this as we go into the spring semester.
And we are done. 6 more weeks of the homeschool year prepared and planned for. It feels so good to have that done. Not only is that one of my January goals done and complete, but also I just feel ready and excited for the things that we're going to be jumping into as we start school back up after our Christmas break. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, maybe got some tips and tricks on how it is that we can prepare lessons and get things around for those high school level students. If you enjoy these types of videos, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up before you go. If you're not already a subscriber, subscribe so you can follow along with our homeschooling through high school journey. In the comments, if you have any advice for folks out there, things that have helped you with planning and prepping in your homeschool, let us know. We'd love to hear from you, find out what things are working in different homeschools, and then we can kind of adapt and add things into our own routines. Also, don't forget to check out the other great videos in this month's show and tell playlist. I will link that down below in the description box for you. Videos are added all throughout the month, so be sure to check it frequently to see if anything new has been added. There's a lot of great homeschooling moms out there sharing their words of wisdom with you on that playlist. Thanks again for joining me today, everybody. I wish you a very happy new year, happy homeschooling. I'll see you in the next one.